Science has yet to explain that vicious freak from hell, the Giant Gila Monster, that loomed from out of the desolate nowhere. A trembling world cowered in its immense shadow. The Giant Gila Monster with the Killer Shrews. A forked and darting tongue lashed humanity like the bullwhip of the devil, sucking up every living thing like common insects. The frightful onslaught of the Giant Gila Monster, paired with the Killer Shrews, motion picture's greatest horror masterpieces. Only the rubble that the enormous beast could not eat was left by the Giant Gila Monster, the gigantic reptile of hell who threatened to ravage the world and all that challenged it. The Giant Gila Monster and the Killer Shrews, the silver screen's most terrifying moments. Only hell could breed such an enormous beast. Only God could destroy it. The Giant Gila Monster, lurking, prowling the desolate nowhere. The Giant Gila Monster and the Killer Shrews, the most terrifying moments ever to shatter the silver screen. From out of the remote and desolate swampland loomed the shadow of the Giant Gila Monster, 10 times the size of any enormous mammal, a reptile of hell, the Giant Gila Monster with Don Sullivan and gorgeous Lisa Simone. They're coming again. Another treatment for me. But electric shocks can't blot out that hellish memory. The sight of that Giant Gila Monster, huge and ghastly and gluttonous, almost luminous in the moonlight. Its slimy, poisonous tongue darting out and sucking in bodies like insects. Watching the Giant Gila Monster helplessly, paralyzed with fright, knowing that mere gunfire only kindled its anger.
What'll it take to stop that thing?
I don't know, but I'm going down to the train wreck and get some troopers. If we pump enough lead into that thing, we may hit a vulnerable spot.
The Giant Gila Monster, miscarriage of nature, prehistoric freak spawned in the dense and desolate swampland. The Giant Gila Monster, with Don Sullivan and the Dresden beauty of Lisa Simone. Now, with the Killer Shrews, the Giant Gila Monster. All the books of science have yet to explain the nightmare of the Giant Gila Monster. Enormous glandular freaks that prowled the desolate nowhere, 10 times the size of any known common beast. Gigantic lizards whose darting forked tongues sucked up humanity like insects, more deadly than all the weapons of man.
Been a lot of livestock missing lately. One here, one there. That doesn't make headlines, but now it's people. What batters a car around like it was a toy?
The reptiles of hell, the Giant Gila Monster, dwarfing every human being, a mockery of nature. The Giant Gila Monster, with Don Sullivan and the enchanting French beauty Lisa Simone. The Giant Gila Monster, with the Killer Shrews. The Giant Gila Monster. As the Western Limited snaked its way through the desolate nowhere, it was then that I first saw it. Its enormous, scaly silhouette actually blotted out the moon. The Giant Gila Monster, like a prehistoric nightmare, weird and fantastic, crouched in the ravine ahead with luminous, flickering eyes like the keyholes to hell itself. The Giant Gila Monster toppled the train like a toy. The passengers never knew what had hit them. Blood flooded their hearts moments before the monster's enormous claw crushed bones and skulls like brittle peanut shells. The spine-tingling, the Giant Gila Monster, with Don Sullivan and France's captivating Lisa Simone. With the Killer Shrews, the Giant Gila Monster will transfix you in horror. True magazine tells the story of the tiny Blarina shrew, the only warm-blooded animal with a savage, poisonous bite. vice-like jaws which drip a toxic saliva. Even more vicious were the ravenous Killer Shrews. In the motion picture masterpiece, The Killer Shrews, with James Best and Ingrid Good. True Magazine first told of the Blarina Shrew. Demons capable of flying at a man, burrowing under his chest and eating his heart out in a matter of minutes. But what of the Killer Shrews, even more savage and vicious? The Killer Shrews, with James Best and Ingrid Good. The cold pages of an encyclopedia will tell you that the most vicious animal on earth is the Killer Shrew. Deadly, diseased, poisonous, multiplying rapidly. All of us on the island knew that the shrews must eat 3 times their own weight each day or starve. And we were the only food that remained.
They're coming! Open the gate! Open the gate! Open the gate!
The shrews, which could devour a team of horses in 30 seconds without a trace. The Killer Shrews, with James Best, Ken Curtis, and the startling beauty of Ingrid Good, along with the Giant Gila Monster. The Killer Shrews. Once, long ago, the word shrew meant nothing more to me than something from Shakespeare. Never would I have dreamt of that hellish night to come when the giant Killer Shrews would have trapped us. Outside, they waited, huge, starving, poisonous. The lovely Swedish girl was particularly wild with terror, her blue eyes a pool of fear as the shrews watched her every move.
No one opens that gate after dark.
Well, who's going to stop me? You?
And those little monsters. They're the most horrible animals on the face of the earth.
The Killer Shrews, spine-tingling, breathtaking, with James Best, Ken Curtis, and the exquisite Swedish beauty Ingrid Good, paired with the Giant Gila Monster, the Killer Shrews. The end of civilization began in Key Sal, for it was on that desolate island that the first of the giant Killer Shrews appeared. Hundreds of them, deadly poisonous, with appetites we found that could only be satisfied by eating 3 times their own weight in flesh each day. That first night, the shrews attacked the livestock on the island and devoured 30 animals without a trace in less than a minute. The next day, we were the only food left for them.
There'll be ample time to panic when they run out of food and go on a 24-hour forage.
How do you know they haven't already?
That's possible. Their main diet has been the small animals on the island. That source could have been depleted 18 or 20 hours ago.
Who can ever forget those voracious and deadly Killer Shrews? With James Best, Ken Curtis, and lovely Ingrid Good, along with the Giant Gila Monster. See the Killer Shrews. That still black night when we waited helplessly for the Killer Shrews to consume us. Over and over I said the 23rd Psalm. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. Thy rod and thy staff, they shall comfort me all the days of my life. Days of my life. This was to be the last day of my life, the last night. For outside waited the swarms of Killer Shrews, crazed with hunger, wild with hate.
Now you stop sniffling and think! It'll take a tank to get us out of here!
The Killer Shrews, one of the screen's great tales of horror, with James Best, Ken Curtis, and the amazing beauty of Ingrid Good, along with the Giant Gila Monster. See the Killer Shrews, enough to turn the devil's bones to ice. Rook was an enormous man, immensely powerful, afraid of nothing. And yet, that last haunted night, when he first saw the Killer Shrews coming toward him like evil and ghostly shadows, Rook's eyes rolled back in his head in abject terror, and he began to run wildly. But it was no use. The Killer Shrews were all around him, Hundreds of them, slavering, starving fiends who ate bones, flesh, marrow, everything. Realizing that he was trapped, Rook began to cry out, horribly through the black night, hopelessly. Jay Simms's great horror thriller, The Killer Shrews, with James Best, Ken Curtis, and fantastically beautiful Ingrid Good, with the Giant Gila Monster, The Killer Shrews. No newspaper was there to report the end of mankind. It began on a lonely, forbidding island in the West Indies, for it was there that the first of the giant killer shrews appeared, huge and multiplying rapidly and wild with hunger for every living creature, devouring all, bones, flesh, marrow, everything. Now that the shrews have begun to spread throughout the world, I must warn you that even a slight scratch from the jaws of the shrew will bring death instantly. Jerry may have been frightened to death by just seeing the shrews.
There's a lot of them out there. I can see them. I'm not going.
Jerry, please come down with us.
No, Ann, they'll get you if you go. Come down here, you fool!
Death lay waiting. The blood-curdling, thrilling The Killer Shrews, starring James Best, Ken Curtis, and beautiful Ingrid Good, together with the Giant Gila Monster, The Killer Shrews. Exactly why the Killer Shrews were obsessed for Anne was never clear. It could have been her beauty. She was one of those remarkably lovely Swedish girls, a fantastic animal with Nordic blue eyes and that Viking blonde hair. Whatever the reason, she was as well aware as any of us that the Killer Shrews outside had to eat 3 times their own weight every day or starve. And we all knew that the shrews would starve by morning if they did not feed upon us that night.
There are 200 or 300 giant shrews out there. Monsters weighing between 50 and 100 pounds.
If we ever get off this island, I'll never have anything to do with it again.
The Killer Shrews, masterpiece of horror, with James Best, Ken Curtis, and gorgeous Ingrid Good, with the Giant Gila Monster, The Killer Shrews.